Hey everyone, welcome back to Kittatinny Woodcraft. My name is Jim. So for a while now I've been trying to find a router table for the router I already own. However, everything I've been coming across has either been for small trim routers, haven't been portable to what I would want them to be, and or they've been ridiculously expensive. So thanks to the video that I have linked down below, I came up with this. And so this only cost me $70 to make. It's perfect. It's nice, portable. It attaches right to the table saw, as you can see. So let me go ahead and show you how I built it. Here's the main star of this build is a 12-inch by 24-inch poplar board. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut it at that line on the right, which will make it fit perfectly in between the rails of the table saw. And I'm going to route out the square in the center, which will allow me to insert the plate into the board so that we'll have a flush surface the whole way across. You'll get to see the routed out and cut piece in just a second, and then you'll see the supporting pieces also after that. With all the pieces now cut out, I found the easiest way to do these main supports was just to put the two pieces together and line them up so you can see where they need to settle. Then once you do that, you just mark where they were, slather some glue on it, which you'll see in a split second, and then nail them in place. Once you build the first one just like you saw, you then just have to repeat the process and you get a second one just like this. With the main supports built, I then attached them to the table saw using clamps, and I marked the crossbars where they were to go with a pen, and that ensured they were in the perfect position. With it marked where the crossbars should go, I went ahead and drilled a pilot hole and then attached everything using screws. With the bottom crossbar installed, I went ahead and installed the top one, and the main difference that this one has to the bottom one is, in addition to drilling pilot holes, I also drilled countersink holes. That way it ensured the head of the screws didn't interfere with the slides on the table saw. With the holes drilled through the main supports, you can then use them as guide holes to drill through the metal supports of the table saw. That way you ensure all the bolts line up perfectly. However, you want to make sure that when you go to drill in the holes like I'm doing right now, that you check the holes before you drill them, because unfortunately I drilled that second hole you see me drilling too high and had to go back and re-drill the hole because it would have drilled right into the main crossbar that was in the back of the table saw. Thanks to this part of the project, I now no longer say mind your P's and Q's, I now say mind your nuts and bolts, and I don't even mean that as an innuendo, because as you can see, the first two bottom bolts I bought were too long for the project. Then when I went back and bought the correct size, they weren't the right thread count for the bolts I had bought. So then finally on the third trip, I got the actual right bolts. Now with the main supports of this router table attached securely to my table saw, I went ahead and inserted the plate into my board. And as you'll see in just a second, my carpenter square glides easily over the board and the router plate. To ensure that the router plate is firmly attached to the board, I used the included nuts and bolts. However, I realized that the nuts were starting to dig into the wood, so I did go back later and add additional washers under the nuts. That way it ensured that it would not damage the board and it would remain tightly secure. An extra part of this build that I didn't include in this video was to finish this top of the router table. I did glue the additional plywood pieces onto each side of it, and that will help make it secure to the supports you'll see in a second. With those additional pieces glued to the bottom of the table, as I mentioned just a second ago, I can now go ahead and insert the crossbars onto the table. And these are also screwed in with the addition of glue. I did actually end up splitting the wood and added some extra supports, which you saw in the first seconds of the video. Once the crossbar is secure, I could then go ahead and put screws into the top table right here and right here, where you see me drilling right now. After repeating the same process on the other side of the router table, you can go ahead and remove the supports since the router table can now hold its own weight. Also, I'm going to go ahead and put the guide rail back on the table saw, and that way it will be able to test to make sure these slides work perfectly. Unfortunately, as you will see, it was a little too tight and the slide did not work correctly. So then I will go and sand it down until it works perfectly, which you'll see in just a split second. One of the things you want to keep in mind when you're buying your router table plate is you want to make sure all the holes lined up. I originally thought the 4 holes would line up. However, after getting it and trying it out, it didn't work. So I had to go back and actually drill through the base, as you saw, to make the plate work. However, if you buy something too small, you may not be able to retrofit it like I did with mine. With everything secure, we can do a test run of the router, and the nice thing about this build also is you can use the table saw guide as a guide for your router. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build an additional attachment. That way I'm not running the router into the guide of the table saw. You will be able to see that in another video upcoming. However, for now, I'd like to say thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave any comments or questions you have down below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.